In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. Before we get started, just gotta do my plugs. My intro, the logo for my intro, was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic Podcast, which is a D&D campaign podcast, a lot of fun with original characters and story. And then the music for my intro was created by my good friend Michael James McGarry. You can find his music on It's MJ Music on SoundCloud or It's MJ Made on Instagram. And then if you want to be on the show, I'd just like to plug this first. You just send an email to youhadtobethere, dndpodcast@gmail.com. That is DND with the 3 letters, not the symbol. And then just follow me here on Twitch or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. But joining me today, I have my guest today is Matt Hogan.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's really cool to have you on the stream. Because I stumbled. Alright, so before we get started, I want you to talk about the reason where I kind of stumbled upon you is because you have a really cool D&D Facebook group. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I've been playing D&D for about 5 years. I was always interested in it, but never really knew much about it. And then after about 2.5 years of going, I'm like, I really want a Facebook group dedicated around monsters and monster creation.
Right.
So I created a page called, D&D Monsters and More.
All right.
But, it grew quickly after about 6-7 months, and we are at probably 2 years, or a year and a half in making, I should say.
Okay.
We're at 70,000 plus people. So it's a lot more than just monsters now. It's monsters and everything D&D related. So it's pretty impressive and pretty awesome group.
Yeah, that's huge. Like and I've been kind of seeing in the conversations go from like just hilarious things. Like I actually just commented on a post. It was just like, if you could describe your job with a D&D class, what would it be? So it's a lot of like playful stuff, but a lot of like learning things as well.
Absolutely.
Nice.
We do have a few, complete white knights and complete black knights. So, sometimes chaos arises, but 70,000 people, you're going to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you've been playing for 5 years. So does that mean you started with fifth edition? Was that your...
Yep. So I've only played 5th edition D&D wise.
Yeah. Okay. Me too. I have some friends that play like Pathfinder and other versions. I've had a few people on that have played since like the 2nd edition and all that stuff. In my opinion, from what I've heard, we're not missing out on anything. It seemed like I don't know. It took me a long time to wrap my head around all these rules and stuff like that. But so as far as you go, so you've been playing for 5 years. Did you start out with like a group? Like, who was the one who got like started? Did you DM first or were you a player first?
So I was a player first. So
okay.
At the time we had this pretty close group of friends, and one of my best friends at the time, he had somebody move from Boston all the way to the West Coast where I'm currently living at.
Okay, cool.
And he did D&D. He was a DM. So he said, "Hey, do you guys want to do D&D?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, I don't know much about it, but let's go."
Right.
And then after probably 4 months, the group ended up disbanding because he had to move back to Boston.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, we only made it to maybe level 3. And then I'm like, I'm going to DM because I want to keep playing. So I started my first DM campaign and lasted 2 years, and we never finished because it ended up disbanding, unfortunately.
Yeah, was it another person like moving away, or just people just got busy and stuff like that?
It was a combination of people getting busy. So it had 7 people, and then people just slowly started dropping out, and then someone had a kid, and other people got married. So it was just kind of one of those, everything's changing.
I got you.
Life
so
happens.
with the group, the guy went back to Boston, and then this other group that disbanded. This was how many years? This was when you first started.
Yep. So this is probably 2 years ago from when it completely disbanded. We played for about 6 months with just 3 of us, and that got a little bit rough as they would invite somebody in to test it out, then they weren't reliable, they would cancel, and it just got to a point where everyone was just kind of done with it.
That's and I'm guessing back then too, like the thought of doing it virtually probably wasn't even like an afterthought. It was like when someone left the table, you're like, that's it, they're gone forever.
Yeah, a little bit, yep.
With your as someone who went from playing in person all the time, did you switch to virtual with all the pandemic stuff going on? Like, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, so because I loved it so much and I missed being a player, I found a group. So I ended up joining a group as a player, which lasted shortly, then ended up disbanding, unfortunately, because everyone got busy and ended up canceling. And I feel it's easier to cancel when you're not in person because you don't know that person. So we had a lot of, no shows, missed shows. Then at the same time, when I was a player on my Sunday group, on Saturday, I ended up creating and DMing another campaign as my fiance, who was girlfriend at the time.
Right.
Her and her sister's husband and a couple other people wanted to keep playing, so I showed them how to play the game.
That's awesome. So you all like play together and stuff like that, and that's definitely good because like I mean it's tough. I mean I'm married and stuff, and my wife she doesn't really care. She's like, yeah, do whatever the hell you want. I'm probably not gonna play. I'm like, that's fine. But like it's still good. Like it's cool that at least you can do that. So you have multiple groups now. You have a Saturday group and a Sunday group.
Yep, Saturday group, Sunday group, and then sometimes I'll do DM Sunday one shots at night.
Nice. You're just playing straight through.
Yes.
That's awesome. Have you what do you think about like the new book that came out? Right, Tasha's was the most recent one. Are you like, have you been into that? Like catching up on all these stuff?
I got Tasha's. I thought a lot of the tattoo stuff was cool in it. Mm-hmm. The only thing I didn't care for, and maybe this is because I homebrew it a little bit different, is that you create your own race, essentially, right? You just pick whoever race and you just take 2 points or whatever. So when I do the game, I have the rule of, usually I do just 70 point buy. You get 70 points allotted. Fill those in wherever you want. That way, if you want to be like a Dragonborn who's really good at Charisma, you don't have to get that +2 strength bonus. You just use whatever points into whatever stats you want.
Oh, okay.
I guess I was already doing it before they kind of mentioned it, I guess. I did
the point buy thing for a few characters and ended up not really liking it because you can just, I don't know, I feel like I just feel like I can get gypped so bad. I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say that anymore from what I hear. Anyway, so sorry. So like, I don't know, like I did the point buy for a couple characters. I'm like, yeah, but they don't have the boost in that. Like, so if you're trying to make a kind of out of the box, not really a standard character, like I built my half-orc bard using point buy, and that was a huge mistake because you just can't get anything. But like sometimes you just get really lucky, but also sometimes you don't. So I guess so you just do it as a big pool, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I do it as a big pool, and I don't tell my players I do this, but usually when they hit 5th, 8th, and 12th level, I give them an extra 2 to 4 skill points. So when they hit that level, they get super buffed up even more, so the character actually feels more powerful.
Wow. So you're just throwing them, you're beefing them up. But I guess it's fun to do as long as you counteract that beef with. I mean, you built the whole Facebook thing about crazy ass monsters and stuff. So you're probably like, I'm giving you this because I'm gonna throw some shit at you. Is that kind of like?
Oh yeah. So my Sunday group now, we're doing it's a homebrewed campaign, and right now they're in the Doom Vault. But whenever I do a module or that I borrow from, I change it up completely.
Right.
So essentially, since your soul can never leave, you can't die. So when the players die in it, they take on a resurrection side effect and they stack. And I let them know ahead of time, hey, meta-wise, after this ends, if you have so many deaths, your character's not leaving. And I'm not telling you that amount. So last Sunday, I literally had a player die twice in 10 minutes.
Oh, geez. So you're just killing them off.
Just like, oh.
My friends call it, when it's that tough, they call it D in Dark Souls. So if it's just like... Yeah, or a meat grinder, sometimes we call it. So that's fun. So you're like, are you very combat heavy when it comes to DMing? Are you a combat junkie?
It kind of depends on the group.
Definitely
depends on the group. So my Sunday group, we have like 9 people, so it's huge. So it's just insane.
9 people's a lot of people. See that? I feel like 9 people. I'd be like, please don't throw us into combat. Like it's just like so. I don't know. That's tough, man. That takes a lot.
Yeah, I do think so. Like in this one, I had everyone pre-reroll initiative for the entire dungeon. I said, hey, this combat's going to happen. I gave them, I said, you can roll 3 times, take your highest one. That way it's more fair. That way it's more benefiting you guys. And I let them know, if you get multiple attacks and you hit your first one, you can use all of your attacks on that first one. If they die, I'll let you transfer that damage to the next one. That way it kind of speeds up combat a little bit, and it's not, okay, I cast this spell, okay, I cast this spell on this target, where's everybody at type of thing.
That's a pretty smart way to go about it. It's definitely, I'm sure there are some people out there that hear that and want to scream, but honestly,
I'm sure.
I mean, in the sense, as I say this to any guest who kind of goes out of the box, like, screw 'em. It doesn't matter. It's your game. Everyone's having a good time. Doesn't matter. But, like, that is a really interesting way to handle that many people because I'm, like, fairly new to DMing, so, like, I did one with 5 and someone was like, can I join? I was like, no. I was like, you run monsters for me and that's what you can do. But that's awesome. So when you started as a player, what were your like first characters, or like what was your style when you went into it?
So my very first character, and it's probably why I still love the class, which is, some people love or hate, is the Warlock. I love a Warlock so much. Cool. So I had a Yuan-Ti Pureblood Warlock. Oh, man. And it was just so much fun to play. He was very, manipulative, trying to mess with people's minds, stuff like that. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. So essentially when that campaign kind of ended, I wanted to keep playing him. So I made him, as the Yuan-Ti lore says, they want to become a god. So I essentially made the past about him. So he's essentially was their BBEG. Nice.
And honestly, like, I haven't even looked at that race, the Yuan-Ti. Like, that's so right out the gate, you kind of went, like, abstract and a more complicated class. Did you do a lot of prep for that? Or were you like, I want to just do this and then learned as you went?
First time I kind of did, I want to do this, learn as you went. The huge mistake I got confused on was spells, because, you look at it, it's like, okay, I'm level 1. I can cast level 1 spells. I'm level 2. I can cast level 2 spells. Well, that's not the case. That part kind of confused me a little bit of, wait, what? And then
because of the way
up a few times.
You mean like because of the way the Warlock has to cast? Kind of deal?
Yeah, so how when you level up, I think you hit level 2 spells at like level 3 or level 4. I was thinking, you hit level 2 spells when your character hits level 2.
Okay.
The case, so,
I gotcha. Yes, you're like, I'm picking all these. I get these dope spells already. Like, no. Yeah, they're definitely scales. Yeah, I haven't played a Warlock yet, but people I play with play Warlocks, and that is definitely a very cool class. So that was your first one? Was the
that was my very first character,
Warlock? Yep. Nice. So that's good too, because I feel like with a charisma-based character as your first time, it kind of forces you to lay into that role play a little more, right? So did you kind of?
It's definitely my favorite stat. Like I'll always use a charisma-based character for anything, it seems like.
Oh, yeah. So you're like, have you ever, so you've done Warlocks, Paladin, Bards.
Bard. Yep.
Do you mess with the Sorcerer at all?
I haven't messed with the Sorcerer yet. Maybe when I play a character again, but I don't play a character very often.
They, people don't play them often, but then you can do some really cool stuff with that meta magic that, like, I didn't even really think about. I played one just last week, and like 2 of us were hurt, and there was no time to take a short rest, and it was a Divine Soul one. So I twinned Cure Wounds, and I was like, I touched you and myself, and like I was like, oh, and I was like, actually, yeah, this is a really good move. Like, I didn't even think about that, and it's like, so it's very, very interesting. If you like the charisma based, it's a fancy kind of, and it's like the Warlock too. You only get like a handful of spells, but you can the meta magic. The way to like tweak them, like the twinning, the distance, there's a bunch of them. Careful, I don't know. There's different ways you could play it, so that's a cool one. So charisma based. Was your second character then charisma based also? Did you stick with that?
Yeah. So my second character, actually same exact character. I just wanted to play him a little bit further, hoping I could get further with him.
You just brought him over. I do that too.
Yep. So I just brought him over. Yeah. So we made it to like level 6, level 7.
Nice.
But I remember doing this one encounter. So we ended up going down. I think there's just 3 or 4 of us into this giant hole, and essentially a wyvern was down there. And because I'm charisma based and he's manipulative, I took the actor feat. So with the actor feat, you know, I would just talk to these random people, and then the DM's like, why are you talking to this random pope or random, you know, church leader? And then just instantly transform into them. And then I would just mimic them, just bring on a group of cult followers and all this stuff. So then we end up going down this hole where a Wyvern was sitting, and I used two of my favorite spells. So I'll always take Hex and Suggestion. So Hex, in my opinion, is kind of like, the blood of the Warlock. Every time you take it, you get an extra 1d6 per hit.
Right.
When you get Eldritch Blast, you're firing 2 beams. It's an extra 2d6, essentially, if you hit both of them.
It's like, it's kind of like Hunter's Mark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Kind of like
That's nice.
Mark.
No,
Yep.
it's perfect. It's the bread and butter.
Then it gives them a disadvantage on a skill you want. So essentially what I had done was I used it, then I cast Suggestion right after it, and essentially I just said, you know what, tell me your life story. So the Wyvern just started talking about life story. We all got in position. Then, we all got to roll with advantage. I ended up critting, and with that crit, the way that like myself does it and the way she was doing it is it's max hit die plus dice roll. So I max hit die, 2 Eldritch Blasts on top of 2, D6s, ended up being like 72 points of damage right off the bat, and she's like, ugh.
Your group is out of control. What is it? Jeez, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, it was
just
insane.
like, just max it out, baby. Oh my god, that's amazing. Some people out there are probably like, this guy, that's like such a balls to the wall way to play crit. Oh my god. If you did a rogue assassin, then you're pretty much like you can just max damage everyone so quick. Oh my god, that's so scary. That's so scary.
Oh yeah.
That's really funny. Oh my god.
But you get the same in return. If your enemy crits, then you're taking
that's true.
a ton of damage.
I have one of the guys I play with, his house rule, I believe, is if you on a saving throw, if you get the nat 1, it's counts as a crit, so you get double damage.
Yep.
But again, it can happen on you, and it's definitely, that's a very scary move. Nice. So with that, so that was with that one. So
that's with my Sunday. That was with my Sunday.
Your Sunday
evening kind of group. Yeah.
Nice.
At the time, that ended up canceling or getting disbanded, I should say.
So you had the first character, and you kind of carried that over, and then that was when you kind of was like, I'm gonna DM for the first time after that group disbanded.
So I had DM'd, and then after my first DM ended, that's when I became a character.
That's when you brought that second character over. Nice,
Yep.
Cool. So with your first DM, like when you first DM, did you do a module or did you homebrew it?
No, so I homebrewed everything. I didn't even look at any modules for any inspiration or anything. It was, in my opinion, the greatest thing to do. It's very difficult because, in my opinion, like when you run a module, they have all these things that you just say, you describe, or what could happen here.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, when you homebrew something, if there's no lore there, you can make it up, and that's the lore that sticks, and you don't have to worry about tying up any loose ends later that might have not been true at the time.
That makes sense. That's a really good point. And I definitely understand that, because if you like misread something and then they're just like, wait, but you said. That's actually really smart, because I'm the one that would do that. I find the plot holes sometimes in things.
Oh yeah,
and like
absolutely.
Yeah, I overthink everything. So that is a valid point. In fact, and honestly, I mentioned this on one other episode, but like I won't say it because it was a really good first time DMing experience for me. But I bought like a really easy one shot, and essentially like they had to relight this lighthouse, and the oil was like too readily available.
Okay.
And then like they were able to light the lighthouse, and then they were like, find this guy, and then there was like a cavern underneath the lighthouse, and led into essentially a little dungeon crawl. And they were like, but we lit the lighthouse. So they just left, and I was like, oh. So the next time I ran that campaign, I was like, the oil is going with the boss. The boss has the oil. So like,
there you go. There you go.
I learned from that, but it makes sense that you just having that freedom could work it out. That's awesome. And then, so you've pretty much been a home brewer ever since?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so I like to homebrew a lot. Recently, my Saturday night group just got out of Curse of Strahd that I pretty much homebrewed a lot of that information. And I did a very unique twist. So they had almost all the items, but one last thing to do.
Okay.
2 of the players had to miss out, and Strahd shows up in front of them, they didn't realize at the time that it was just an illusion of him. Like the sun was out and everything. So I gave them the choice. I'm like, you guys did well. Hand over all your items, or we're gonna fight right now. And he had just shown up through a black fog that took 20 damage from them, including their max HP. So they couldn't regain that 20 back.
And that was the illusion that did that?
And that was the illusion that did
that. And that was your twist on it?
That's one of my twists, yeah. God, dude. So the whole time they're thinking about this, because they're down 2 guys, they're thinking they're gonna have to fight this guy that they're not ready for, that they want to fight and kill.
Yeah.
And then they finally said, okay, you know what? We'll do it. We can go. So they gave them all the items. They went for it. And then the next week, when the 2 guys returned, I said, no one say any spoilers. These 2 are gonna get the exact same choices. So when he showed up, they didn't want to go. They didn't know what happened to their party. They didn't want to give up their weapons or anything like that. And then he power word killed the one guy that lied to him. And then the wizard ran away. Then he fireballed him. So it was brutal.
You are Matt Hogan. You are by far the most ruthless DM I have had on this show thus far. I got to say that is.
Yeah, no, for sure. So my Saturday group is my easy group.
Just killing
and
players
I have 2
left
players
and right.
that play in my Sunday group, and they're like, "This is rough," because I do it very strict. I do it. Hey, if you do this, you will die. Because I mean, we have like 9 players. This level of difficulty has to be
you got to
increased
kill
somehow.
a few players each session just to keep track of 9 people. That makes sense.
Right? Yeah, and then I mean, everyone knows in the Sunday group, like, we did not play that right. But if you do something intelligent and smart, you might get punished, but I'm not going to kill you for it. So when they were level 3, we had 1 encounter. It was like 46 kobolds, and essentially the fighters at the time, they were hiding behind the doors, and the cleric was the one tanking. It was just a nightmare of stuff happening. And then the rogue says, okay, well, I'm going to sneak around, throw like this mummy poison powder dust everywhere. I'm like, yeah, you do that. You take out half of them. The other half shoots arrows at you. But then I had their friendly kobold that was kind of on the side come in, pull her out and save her, because she did something clever. It worked. So there you go. I'm not going to kill you for that.
Oh my gosh. So when you have a group, do you make them roll through with like 3 characters?
I recommend having a backup. Highly recommend having backup.
That makes sense. Yeah.
If they don't have a backup, I will say, like, depending on where we're at in the session, usually my sessions are only 2 hours long. So I'll say, hey, feel free to play with them the rest of the time, but next time, roll a new character.
You only play for 2 hours too, huh?
2 hours, yep.
Wow. So they're pretty quick. Those, in my opinion, that's a very short session. So like.
Oh yeah.
That's wow. I'm like 4 hours in. I'm like, let's keep going. But that's crazy. All right, so, and that's everyone. That's your both Saturday and Sunday. You hammer it out
just
for
2 hours
2?
each. Yep.
Do you DM both?
Everyone has lives.
Remind me
I'm
one more time.
super busy.
Oh yeah,
so.
I understand, man. I feel that like my group right now. With the summer coming up, we're probably not playing super regular for the rest of the summer, but it'll come back, I'm sure. That was the one cool thing about like. The one good thing about the pandemic is we can play for like 8 hours. There's nothing to do. Like we played,
right? Yeah,
all people were working from home. We're like, I think it was like clock out of work and then just right into it. How did your dynamic change actually for someone who was does all these games with these big groups? Like, what was how'd you figure out the playing during the pandemic? Like when you go in person, do you use like minis and stuff, and how did you kind of tackle that?
So I have minis and whatnot, but my Saturday night group, that's my in-person group. So because we do that with friends and stuff, and I live in a state that didn't really regulate that a whole lot, we still met in person. I know some people might not like that, but yeah, we still met in person. Most of it was family anyways. Okay. I have like the maps and everything, but a lot of them, they didn't like the maps because it was a little bit unrealistic for them. So essentially I would shoot them a picture on the internet. I'm very forgiving of if they said, oh no, I actually wanted to be here when combat happens. Like, that's fine. If you want to be there instead, misunderstanding, no worries. Sunday's kind of the same way. We play over Discord. So I just kind of send them a map. Sometimes if it's a huge map, like the Doom Vault, for example, give them a little mark of, hey, you guys are right here, and just kind of run them through it that way.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I feel like I know a lot of people use like Roll20 and Foundry and all these programs, and like it's cool, but like that's how I started playing in the pandemic, and I literally that's all I know is them just sending me pictures. And I feel like everyone does that. And I'm like, I didn't mean right in the middle. I meant like in the middle to the left. Now is your Sunday game still is virtual?
Yep, still virtual. Yep.
All right.
So yeah, because I live in Idaho, and I have people playing from like California, Oklahoma, Kansas, just all over. I even have a guy in England that plays with us too.
All right, nice. How did that work out? What did they have to get up at? Like, how'd you time that? I guess it's a weekend, so it's not as crazy.
It's a weekend, so we start at 8 a.m. on Sunday, and so that's like 3:00 his time. So he's like, "Oh, this is perfect."
Okay, I got you.
And then I do have Foundry and Dungeon Draft, so I have made my own maps, but I save those more just for one-shots because it takes so long to create a map and then to do Dungeon Draft and Foundry VTT to line up all your walls and everything like that, and it just takes a lot.
Yeah, we used Foundry once. My one guy I play with uses it, so he was like, we were doing a big dungeon. We were doing Cragmar Castle, which is from the Lost Mines of Phandelver, and he was like, we can find this on this, and he did it for us, and it was cool, but it required so much work. We're like, we don't really need to do this.
Ton of work.
So yeah. So with someone like you said, you're very busy, so it makes sense. You just kind of like map it out and stuff like that. Cool. So I kind of want to hear some more. You threw a couple cool, fun stories. What are your moments, either as a DM, a player, best, worst? I don't know, like how
So I'll go through my best player moments really quick. So I have two highlights.
All right.
One was in my very first campaign I did.
Okay.
And I remember we had this lamp, or one of the guys had the lamp. It essentially led him to this giant castle where this huge big bad guy was.
Okay.
In the castle, we were pretty hungry, starving, didn't have any food, and we snuck in these two Warforged maid guys who were just making some meats and steaks. So in my first character, he was like the king of nat ones, just awfulness. And so every game I've played in, we do, nat 1 is always a critical fail, nat 20 is always a critical success.
Okay.
I know a lot of people don't like that, but whatever.
As far as like if it's a perception, it is a critical fail. I kind of also am like, but
because I've always been on the page of, especially as a DM, if you can't do it, I won't make you roll for it. Because they go, well, why would you roll for it?
Sometimes it's funny though.
Yeah, right. Sometimes it's funny.
All right. So you're the king of nat ones. You're nat one and.
We sneak in. They had meat on the stove. Right when they turn around, I mage hand to grab a piece of meat just to keep it, and I nat one and it drops. And then the maid turns around. I'm like, okay, can I stealth out? He's like, yeah, you can try. Nat one again, back to back nat ones. My party left because they wanted nothing to do with it, so I'm all alone. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful. So as we're going, then this fight breaks out, and he goes, I wasn't planning on this being a combat. I'm like, I wasn't planning on this being a combat. So as we go, I end up going Elder's Blast. I kill one of them almost right away, and then all of a sudden nat one again, and then I blow up half the mansion as it just explodes, and I'm laying there on death's door. It is awful. Then the cool thing was when we finally made it to the boss after a couple sessions, the DM did something really interesting. He essentially made the whole room super powered. He gave us this ally that was his old Dragonborn that was level 20. So the whole time this Dragonborn is doing a ridiculous amount. He had this magical aura going. So when we were rolling dice, all those people like to roll dice. You roll, your 1d10 Eldritch Blast damage. He would give us like 10 d10s to roll because of all this magical energy. It's like, holy crap, we are like super buffed.
Right.
That was just a pretty awesome experience.
Nice. So he just kind of was like, as this, the essentially dungeon was it collapsing in on itself, or like it was just?
It was like we were teleported to a different plane, because as we were destroying walls and bolts firing, we saw almost like these stars outside, like in a galaxy and stuff. It was a pretty unique experience.
That's cool. It's like cosmic, high level experience of like destruction. That must be fun. I like when the scene starts collapsing in, or like I played one, it was like a haunted house, and when we defeat it, the house started collapsing. We're rolling deck saves as we're like running out of the house, and like it's fun when like a combat, it's like slow, and then something happens where you're like no, it's go time, like we gotta get the hell out of here, or something like that.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of fun. So you rolled, what was that, 2 consecutive nat ones, you said?
Yeah, 2 consecutive nat runs, and then a third like 5 or 6 rolls
Well,
later.
if it makes you feel any better, my second episode of this podcast is with a guy named Kyle Riley Joseph, and he rolled 16 consecutive nat ones. So there's an episode. My second episode is called 16 nat ones in a row, and that is so. Don't worry, it gets worse, for sure.
That's why I DM, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, well, that's why you you can roll a lot of nat ones as a DM.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, nice. And then which character was that? That was with your first character, you said, right?
So that was with my first. Yep.
The warlock.
UNT Pure Blood Warlock. Yep.
Cool. Wait, so that means because you said you didn't get above level 3, so that was all happening at like level 3.
Yeah, it was insane.
That's awesome. Nice. Have you what other do you have any because you said you have been doing some playing, right?
Yep.
With newer characters? Nice.
Yep.
What about any newer stories of like things that have happened recently?
I had a I guess following that, so with my redo of my Warlock, we were in the Death House. We just did a one-shot of the Death House.
Okay.
Spoilers if you haven't done Death House.
Yeah, I
the
haven't done
stairs
it, but...
are at the very top of the building to go down to the 4 stories down to the dungeon.
Okay.
So as we're going through this mad Death House, I get there and it was just 3 of us, not including the DM, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's these spiral staircases that goes down. I want to take a mattress and totally surfboard down these stairs. And then I go, and then the guy I was with, he's like, that sounds awesome. I'm going to grab a mattress. The DM, she's just shaking her head. The other character, she's shaking her head. So the other character goes, I walk down the stairs. So she's halfway down the stairs, and we're surfing down. We collide into her. She collides to the bottom of the stairs. Thank goodness there was no traps. It's just kind of a cool, funny, silly moment.
Oh, man. That's like, oh, my God. That's like, who was the responsible one in the party?
That would have been her.
She's probably like, I need a freaking hole in the head. Just like dad mode. Like,
pretty much.
Scruffing you guys by the t-shirts. That's really funny. What is this one shot? What's it called again, you said? Sorry.
So it's called the Death House. So if you do this Curse of Strahd module, it's the very first thing that takes your character to level 3. So it's kind of before you enter the land of Barovia.
So level 2 to level 3 kind of deal?
Yep. So a lot of people skip it because that house, if you play by the rules, is very deadly. It is awful.
Okay. So almost like you could probably have them do like a level 3 or something. Yeah. I'm actually, it's kind of cool. I jotted it down because if I can, it's written though to be like more of a one-shot kind of thing too.
Yeah, you could easily do it as a one-shot.
Nice. All right. I might be running one on Saturday, and I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So maybe I'll do that one. Freak them out a little bit. Cool. So what about with all your time DMing? Like, have you ever had? I know you said you put a lot of checks in place for plot holes and stuff like that. You ever had characters like ruin your? I love hearing when they outsmart you and they screw you over bad.
Yeah, so this one didn't screw me over bad, and I couldn't believe it. So in my very first DM session, campaign I did, I probably overdid puzzles, like way too complicated puzzles. It wasn't like if they failed the puzzle, they couldn't continue type of thing.
Right.
But I had one puzzle in a room, and essentially there was 3 items, and if they failed once, one item dropped, so they had 3 chances to get it right.
Okay.
And so I had these words on one side with 1 blank, and I had numbers on the other side. So essentially you had to match the number with the letter in the alphabet, and that would spell out, kind of words type of thing.
Okay.
So this girl, she's looking at it for about 15 minutes, and then she just goes E, and I'm like, how did you get E? Because that was the answer. I couldn't believe she figured it out. She's like, well, if I rearrange all the letters, it says softness. I'm like, softness? Are you kidding me? That's not even what I was going for. So she ended up collecting all the loot. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So it was just a different word entirely?
Yeah, after you rearrange all the letters in this super elaborate way.
What was it supposed to say?
It wasn't supposed to say anything. It was just supposed to be the letter E.
Oh, it was just supposed to be. So you accidentally spelt out the word softness, essentially, and didn't realize. That's funny. That's cool. Oh man. And that was a campaign that you homebrewed, you said?
Yeah, that was my very first homebrew campaign.
First homebrew. So right out the gate, you're like, well, I should check my spelling on that. Nice. I can incorporate. That's the one thing I'm like. When you DM, you said you like puzzles. What do you come up with them yourself, or do you kind of do a little Googling on like puzzles? Do you use the Facebook group at all for that kind of stuff?
So the very first time I did it, like I said, I didn't look anything up. I did it all by myself.
Right.
The next few times I've used the Facebook group quite a bit for it, but I don't do puzzles as much because I know it's not everyone's forte. I remember I had one puzzle, and this was probably one of my most fun ones I've done. They were in this haunted house, essentially. They had to collect, they didn't know, but they had to collect all these skulls. And essentially there was a fountain in the center of the house that they didn't know why there was a fountain there. So after they collected the skulls, they had to clean the skulls and then put them on all of the skeletons that were sitting at the dining table. And that unlocked the upstairs.
Okay.
So one of the puzzles I had was, it was downstairs in the basement. Once they went down, it locked. They couldn't get back up. And there was 12 squares. Every 30 seconds, and I would show them the timer count down, I would roll a d12, and whoever was standing on that square number of that what came up, 10 fire damage as it just heats up. So they were down there just like struggling, like trying to think of all this stuff every time I reset it to 30-second timer. And then they're like, and then once that 30-second timer, she was like, I am right here. I said I was right here. Do not do this. I'm like, that's fine. You can be right there. And then they would miss, and like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just a fun overall puzzle of collecting the skulls and washing the skulls. And
how long did you, so it took 30 seconds for them to figure out the puzzle, but like, was that every 30 seconds while they were running around trying to?
Yeah, so it took 30 seconds to essentially one of those areas would catch fire. So it took them like a few minutes just to figure out the puzzle, but they're arguing back and forth at the table trying to figure this out because some of them are getting roasted and here and there. And
oh my god! And then did they have to travel far to like clean the skulls?
No, so it was all in just a 2-story house. So there's only a few rooms. So in each room there ended up being a skull. One of the hidden skulls, there was actually a doppelganger. And so they had to kill him and actually take his skull as one of the skulls to clean it off.
Jeez.
But I remember at the very beginning, like they're like, oh, there's a fountain in the center. I'm like, that's odd. Then the player's like, I jump in it. I'm like, oh, you are now sparkly clean. Not realizing that, oh, sparkly clean means that's what it needs to be to go on the skull or on the body part of the skeleton.
Oh, so he jumped in and got like super sparkly clean, and then they're just looking around like, how are we gonna clean these skeletons? I don't know. How are we gonna clean these skulls? They're dishwasher.
I remember they were like thinking about it. I'm like, if only there was a way you could be sparkly clean. How would that? And then someone's like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Fountain. Wait a second. Light bulb. That's hilarious. That's fun. So that one you just came up with all on your own?
Yeah, that one I just came up with. Yeah.
That's awesome. I might pick your brain sometimes because like that's where I'm struggling the most with it. It's more just like go to the travel, combat, like I need to like figure out when I'm doing this to get those. That was one thing I was thinking about. I was like, I should incorporate like some more traps and puzzles and stuff. So that's that's definitely a skill.
One of my players reached out to me because he started DMing for his own group.
Nice.
But he started at like level 7 because he wanted to see what level 7 guys could do.
Right.
He realized he messed up because he gave him too much power stuff. So he said, dude, I need like a good monster that will put these guys in their place. And I said, here's a monster that no one's thought of, a ghost dragon. Look at the lore of it. It's super cool. He's like, oh my gosh, this is golden.
You said, so you said no one's thought of? So, but is it a monster? If I look up Ghost Dragon, it's there.
Yeah. So if you look up Ghost Dragon, I don't know if it's an official D&D monster, but if you Google it, you can find it. And if I remember correctly, the lore is like a dragon stays behind us because like its mate was killed or something, so it can like possess people and all this other stuff. And he just said it worked like a charm, freaked his players out and steered them straight.
Yeah, sometimes that's what I'm waiting for. Like I've said it before, but like. I like when it gets a little scary. I haven't lost a character yet because I haven't played with you. And then, but like I like that like slight little like, oh man, this could be it. This could be where my first character dies. That's funny though. I'll have to look up Ghost Dragon. When you actually oh, go ahead.
So go ahead.
No.
So I know in my very first campaign, so one mistake I made, and maybe this is why I'm so ruthless, is I would never kill the character. I would always pull my rolls. And that eventually made my life so hard because the second one person got knocked down, they were throwing the biggest, like they're not even dead yet. They still have their death saves. And it's like, dude, I am okay, it's fine. So now, whenever I play, I'm like, hey, this is rough. This is how it is. If it happens, it happens. It's all in the dice.
Yeah. So essentially, you dropped them for the first time, and they were just like, oh no, you're like, oh,
Yep.
I was supposed to drop you a bunch of other times. I feel like that's, again, it's like a dance. Like, you're trying to figure out that balance, because I know some DMs that, like, they will never finish the character. They'll let the death saves determine if they live or die. And then, sometimes I think fudging the rolls makes sense, especially for, I don't know, unless you have those second characters played. Like, I learned I should do that sometimes, because, like, I focus fired on someone and I crit twice, and I was like, they were like, I'm dead. I'm like, no, you're not. We're just going to pretend, because, like, I didn't have anything, so, like, but so you kind of, like, you're like, fine, no more Mr. Nice Guy. That's funny, man. That's funny. Very, very cool.
Yeah, and then that actually reminds me. So another time I had a player kind of not outsmart, but get super lucky. So I had this boss. It wasn't the BBG, but it was like the daughter of the BBG. So super powerful. Okay. She's leading this whole army of undead skeletons. I gave him a potion that I homebrewed of giant strength. So essentially if he drank it, he could get times 10 on his next hit.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's different than just a regular giant strength thing then. Okay.
And he drank it, and he's in a life or death situation where if he doesn't do something good, he is dead, because he's in this poison cloud.
Okay.
And he crits for 30 damage. So he does 300 damage to this one person. It's like, yeah, you just like Spartan kick her and she goes sailing.
Oh my gosh.
You win.
That's it. Oh, broke the ribs and everything. That's okay. Well, that's a lesson there too. Watch out! Don't give that potion to someone. Give that to the squishy wizard or something. Oh man, very, very cool, man. Do you have any other last maybe like one more cool story for me, if you got one?
Yeah, so one thing I do that I actually love, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I kind of made it up as I went. So I like doing, like roll tables and all this cool stuff and homebrewing my stuff. But one thing I did that my players absolutely love is, how people do if you change one letter in a spell, that becomes a new spell.
I've never heard this one. Tell me about this.
Okay, so there's a little bit of memes going on, and where they make a spell where if you change one letter in a spell, it becomes that spell. So, for example, power word kill could become like power word pill or something like that, right? Okay. So it becomes something completely new. Okay. So I have a list of spells that are just silly that I made up, and essentially they'll find them on a wizard body that maybe wasn't good at school, so they made up this spell. So they think it's power word kill, but I'm like, you either have to roll a high arcana or test it out to see what it actually does. So I did one, and this girl found it, and she got like a summon greater or lesser demons. But demons turn to lemons, so she just dropped all these lemons in a 30-foot radius, so it makes it very difficult terrain. She got another scroll that was wish, but it was actually fish, so once a day she could fish in this magical pond that was connected to the water plane. Just fun things like that. And
they find the scroll, and it'll say like lemon or fish on it?
No, so it doesn't say it, but the writing within the scroll, they don't know what it does. They just like, okay, this is power word kill, but I'm like, but just so you know, it might not be power word kill, so you might want to either test it out or something.
So it'll say it'll be like, it looks like it says power word kill.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like it says, okay, all right. It looks like it says, all right. So it's just in
the scribbles and stuff like that. But something just seems off about this.
That's funny. In fact, I think I'm going to call this episode an absolute lemon.
I like it.
Or something like that.
I like it. That's good.
Oh, very, very
and then
cool,
like I said, and then I let them just keep that item just as like, a one-time use, or I say, hey, you can use this as a level 1 in the future, put it in whatever book.
Maybe you're serving up some glasses of water and everyone wants lemons, and boom.
Exactly. Yeah, she said she was going to do a fish fry with homemade lemonade when she retires.
Yeah, there you go. All right. That's it. Who needs create food and water when you have very, very cool, man. Well, Matt, this was a lot of fun. I'm really glad I got to sit down and talk to you. Why don't you just plug the Facebook group one more time for anyone
Oh yeah,
listening?
appreciate it. So a Facebook group is D&D Monsters and More. Like I said, we have 70,000 people. There's a really cool monster that somebody homebrewed from the page that was voted on to be the page image. So just check it out. It's called the Reanimation Master. So
Very, very cool. Awesome. And then do you have anything else to plug, or is it that's your main thing?
that's my main. Just thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah,
if
of course,
you
man.
find that Facebook page, just always hit me up. People hit me up all the time with just random questions or anything.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
I might honestly, I have guests lined up, but I might just bother you and be like, hey, I won't bombard your page, but I'll message you and be like, hey, if you know someone that might want to come on and tell stories, I mean, this is a word of mouth thing I'm kind of doing, so when people get on board. But awesome. Well, thank you. Let me just do my sign off, everybody. This has been You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast with me, Tom DeSillis. Once again, if you want to be on the show, I just ask that you, one, either follow us on Twitch if you're listening here on Twitch, or if you want to listen to the audio form, all of the episodes are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. So follow us on one of these platforms, and then just shoot me an email at youhadtobethere@gmail.com. That is D&D with the letters, not the symbol. And then you can also follow me on my Instagram at Tom DeSillis Comedy, which, if you don't know, I'm also a stand-up comedian, which is popping off right now. So follow me there. And thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, thanks, guys.